Welcome back to part two of our meeting. I had the opportunity to meet Teri Lynge-Kehl at the MUFON Symposium this year, and I think I met her at the symposium last year too, so definitely very active in MUFON. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a MUFON member of the board of directors since 2016, as well as the director of membership. She's had an extremely paranormal-filled life that began at a very young age and carries through even to today. Teri, a radio and TV personality with Kehl Media and Enigmatic Anomalies, is also an author, speaker, paranormal, and UFO certified field investigator, and is the creator of United MUFON, a live streaming web broadcast highlighting the different members and personalities involved with MUFON and the UFO UAP world. Teri is also a consultant for the MUFON University team and is dedicated to helping bring MUFON into the 21st century by updating and enhancing the CMS, our case management system, intake forms, as well as the field investigator training through the MUFON University. Her ebook, Alien Healing, The True Story of Benevolent Extraterrestrial, is just one of her many personal experiences and recounts and interactions with a reptilian hybrid that took place in 2012, which used a powerful biological instrument to perform a miraculous healing of her internal organs that removed her agonizing pain from a long-standing 12-year health issue. Teri resides in Paris, Tennessee with her husband, Kevin, and can be contacted at dom@mufon.com, and she hosts a blog at www.terilynn.com. If you need the spelling of Teri Lynn, I can give it to you, but we'll have that around. So Minnesota MUFON, is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you. Give a big round of applause to Teri Lynge-Kehl.
Thank you so much for all being here. I really do appreciate that. I'm going to go through this pretty quick. So it doesn't take up too much time. It's usually about an hour, so I don't want to go over my time limit with all of you. But let's see. My husband gave me some instructions here. So my life has been definitely incredibly paranormal, spiritual, demonic ridden, really. I've had a lot of odd experiences and things over my lifetime, as well as extraterrestrial. So this is something that is not bizarre to me. Maybe for a lot of people it would be, but it's just my normal life, things I've dealt with ever since I was very young. And I'm going to skip over the what ifs, but I do want to talk about my family being involved in extraterrestrials for at least 70 years that we could look at. And between my brother, who's in the upper left there, Phil, he's from my mother's first marriage, so he's considerably older than me. And he started at 9 years old having interactions with extraterrestrials, which I didn't know anything about until my experience in 1979. But my mother also had experiences while on her houseboat. That's a picture of her houseboat and her husband standing there. I had an experience in 1979 that was profound and literally changed my life. And my son and I had an experience in 2012 in St. Petersburg with 3 lights that morphed into a black triangle with many lights on it. And so that is encompassing the 70 years that we've all been experiencing. So moving right along, like I said, I'll pass up the what ifs and get to what happened to me. Let me just go in here. I don't want to take too much about all of this. So one night, as I was laying in bed and sleeping, I had this experience with this extraterrestrial that came into me. And I had had a surgery from a type of injury, I guess, over the years, which was actually Crohn's colitis. And the doctors had told me it was going to turn into cancer if I didn't have an immediate organ repair and have my large intestine taken out, which is called a subtotal colectomy. And so I had to have this, or they said I would die. So I did. And I want to share this portion of that now with you. So I'll get into this personal experience. So back in 2000, which is when I started having issues with my body, I was told, like I said, that I had to have this. Some of these don't apply because they go on into all of the different things that I talk about later. So in 2000, I started being ill and I had the surgery. That's the large intestine, which I had removed. The doctor said I had to have it removed. So I went on to have that surgery and have the whole thing taken out, which was literally a very risky surgery, incredibly risky. And I had no guarantees going in, didn't know if I'd live through it. Thank God I did. And there was a bleed that they had created that they could not fix. And so after the surgery, I was in a lot of pain. And that went on for a while, and they told me I would have to have a second surgery to repair the pain. The doctor was letting me know that if I didn't, I'd stay in that real serious pain. So I chose to go in a second time and have them reopen me 6 weeks later and redo the surgery. If any of you have ever had any surgery and it's all healing up quite nicely, imagine going back in and slicing yourself open again. It was unbelievable, off the charts, painful, and it was really difficult for me. So what I had found out was they may have stopped the bleed, but they didn't stop the pain. And so I ended up being in pain for a very long time. I was in the hospital for a very long time. And once I got home, this pain was so bad, I would call the office and ask them to please help me with something until I got to feeling better. And they stopped taking my calls because I was more burdened. I was a burden to them. So unfortunately, that can happen. They might have thought, well, she's just looking for drugs. Well, nothing could be farther than the truth. I'm not a drug taker. I don't like them. I don't participate in them. I just needed to get out of pain. So I figured they'd labeled me because I couldn't get out of pain. So this was my new normal. I accepted it, moved on, prayed about it. And then 12 years later, while I was in my bedroom sleeping, I had an experience that was beyond amazing. It was beyond frightening and life-changing. And I heard my name called and I looked, and this is my husband did a few renditions of the reptilian that I saw that night as I turned over in the bed. And it was right there. It was 4 feet high. We also have a artist rendition in the upper right hand. I thought if my maybe would share it with somebody else, then they would be able to see what I was seeing. And when I shared it with the artist, and I paid quite a bit for that, rendition, I found out that it was almost identical to what I had told Kevin, and he kind of got the same thing. But trust me when I tell you, unless you've seen it with your own 2 eyes, you just can't make something and allow somebody to see it with what you're seeing in your mind. This is the closest thing. And I thought maybe I'm just no good at sharing what I'm trying to share. I told him it had big jowls. It had the red and the black around the eyes. I told him that it had many, many different colors and that it had these small little hairs on the end of the scales that I was seeing. And in the upper left-hand corner, the coloring of this thing was amazing. It had those colors in it, not exactly like that, but then, that is somebody's rendition of what I'm trying to tell them. And this one showed the different little hairs. We tried to put that on there so that you could see. He was very frightening. And as I was looking at him, I was trying not to look right in his eyes because it was overwhelmingly fearful. It's hard for me to put into words what I was actually feeling because there were so many emotions all climaxing in my head at the same time. One of pure fear, one of what the heck is that, trying to wrap your mind around it, and then wondering, why is this even happening? I mean, there's so much that comes to your mind and your eyes are trying to focus on what is that. It takes, you know, the major part of your mind trying to focus on this. And that was, I just couldn't. I literally, the terminology is I could not wrap my mind around that. So it was pretty frightening. I rolled over when I had heard him call my name, and I froze. And once that happened, I was looking at him, and I was very much engrossed in all these scales and the tiny hairs, and looking at this. I was looking for a mouth. I was looking for a snout. Nothing. There was nothing there. No ears. So different than anything that I had ever seen. And I was looking for something normal, and there was nothing normal about this. Nothing at all. And so I finally did look up into his eyes, and he was looking at me just like I was looking at him, which was beyond frightening, really, really scared me. And I noticed at that point that there was something in his hand. And that was probably, again, another fearful moment that I was trying to understand and deal with. And I really was having a very hard time doing that, because in his hand was what you see on the left. That's kind of a recreation of somewhat of what it looked like. And the coiled and fern-like there shows you that what I'm about to tell you was, this thing was not like any surgical instrument. It was moving. It was biologically alive. These were a Y at the end of, or I should say a V attached to the end of like a Y, you know, so you'd had something like that. And each piece was moving individually. And the shock of that, seeing something alive like that, like, what is he going to do with that? You know, what in God's name is this? And it was, they were acting differently, almost like they were two completely separate components, but on one stem. And one was all curled up like that fern, like you see here. And the other one had a suction cup like you would see on the tentacle of a octopus. And I couldn't even, I mean, just couldn't wrap my mind around it. Okay. It was that frightening. And I knew this was going to be a very frightening thing happening here. I could see that, you know, what is he going to do with that, you know? And he did use that on me. He spoke to me and simply said, "Be still." And when he did that, of course, I don't remember moving, but obviously in my fear, I had moved. I don't know, you know, I don't know. There was no video going that night, so I can't even tell you what really did happen, other than what I can remember of it. When he said, "Be still," I thought, well, I thought I was being still, you know, but the fern part, as tiny as that was, they were very long. Let me just say that too. They were extremely long stems on this Y instrument. And curled up, that one seemed quite small. The other one was very long and just moving. And it attached to the outside of my body, and the small coiled fern-like was vaginally put in me. And it went right to where the pain was that I had been learning to live with in so many years. And it wrapped itself. And you know, the only way I can describe it is it just went like this. In my mind's eye, I could see this thing wrapping, like it somehow was unwrapping and wrapping, and then it started this pressure. Once the pressure started, that was so scary to me, because I thought, oh my God, you know, this thing hurt. And now I've got all this pressure. And then I started feeling heat, like some type of heat. And then I started feeling a hum, a vibration. So I had three things going on there that were happening all simultaneously while I'm staring at this piece that is on the outside of me. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck? You know, it just was too overwhelming to even try to understand. And that went on for a very long time. So these things were all happening, and they were squeezing, vibration, more heat, more squeezing, more heat, more vibration. And it scared me so bad. I literally took my hands, clenched them, and I have usually long nails. I had dug into the skin of my own hands. I was so frightened. And I brought them up to my face, and I covered my face, and I closed my eyes. And all I could think of was, that thing is getting so tight, it is going to burst. I am going to have blood everywhere on this bed. It is going to be horrific. And I couldn't wrap my mind around that either. I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening to me? And I was just ready to scream. I couldn't take it another second. That it was so tight in there now, and the heat was pretty hot actually, and the vibration was incredibly strong. And I was just getting ready to scream because I thought, I'm going to blow. My insides are going to blow. And then all of a sudden, it lessened. And with my eyes closed, and I don't know how long I actually laid there with my eyes closed, but all of a sudden I didn't feel the pressure. That's the only thing I didn't feel. The pressure lessened, the heat was still there, and the vibration was very strong, but there was no more pressure. And then finally, I opened my eyes. And when I did, he was totally gone. And then I was trying to understand, how did that happen? Where did he go? What was it? Why is this even happening? There were all these things going on in my mind. And so, then I was just left with, oh my God, that thing looked like an octopus. It just looked like an octopus. And on the upper left there, you can see those little round things. That is really, it had a little bit of a different shape. It almost looked like a spade on a playing card, like a spade. But that is what it looked like, that white like that. And on the lower there, you can see in the animation how they move and how that coils, the end coils up. It's just so icky looking, so gross, and that's kind of how I felt about all that. This is just so freaking icky, it's nasty looking. And so I went through that. Of course, this is just saying be still. But after I went through that whole, experience, I laid there and I laid there and I could not get up. I couldn't bring myself to getting up. I still had the heat was going away a little, not completely, but the vibration was so strong. And I'm laying in bed after he had left, and it was almost like it was some type of extraterrestrial anesthesia or something. And I just literally laid there trying to, understand, what is this? Why is this still doing this? And I got up. Well, let me just say this. My husband was in bed sleeping with me. It had to be about 5:30. And as I laid there, his alarm went off, which was at about 6. He had to get up for work. I heard the alarm go off. I never woke him or told him about this. I'm not sure why I didn't, but I just felt like I couldn't relate. I couldn't talk. I couldn't share what had just happened to me. So I didn't. And when he left, I heard him locking the door. He had taken a shower. He had gotten dressed. I heard all that. I still laid there. Then he went out to get into his truck to leave. I heard the keys in the door, locking the door, and I heard the truck start, and he drove away, and I still laid there. I could not physically move the way I thought I should just be jumping up now. And, I just couldn't do it. So as I laid there, I think it finally was 9 o'clock and I got up. So that's 3 hours. I just laid there. I didn't fall back asleep. I just kept waiting for that vibration to stop, and it never did. And so I got up and I called Kathy Martin. And I said, Kathy, oh my God. Now, Kathy was a very good friend of mine. She only lived 30 miles away from me. We used to spend the weekends together and do a lot of CE5s. And, you know, a lot of us girls would hang out, including Denise and some of the girls in Florida. I was the ASD for Florida, and we were just all great friends. So it wasn't weird for me to call Kathy, you know, since I, you know, been her friend for like 6 years at this point, if not longer. And yeah, at least. And I just felt like, okay, let me call her. Let me tell her. I told her and she was blown away. And she said, have you told Denise about this? And I said, no, I hadn't. So she said, you know, hang up, call Denise, let Denise, you know what just happened to you. They were both ERT. Of course, Kathy was the head of the ERT at that time. And so I called Denise. And again, Denise is a really good friend. So she said to me, well, Teri, my God, you know, have you taken a swab? You know, and I'm STAR team. I'm somebody that is on that team. I'm a certified field investigator. I'm an ASD, and I should know to do this, but nothing about how I was thinking was working. It was like I was not able to comprehend what I should be doing because I was so caught up in that vibration and the experience. And I think now, as I look back, I was functioning from a perspective of shock. I just hadn't been able to make it make sense. And she said to me, go get a swab and, you know, get some form of proof that this happened. So I'm listening to her and I'm like, okay, I got a swab. How stupid was that? I don't know. But I did exactly as she said. And it was almost like I couldn't think clearly for myself. I should have gotten more than a swab. I should have gotten maybe 4 or 5, but I only got one. And you know, just imagine you're going in and you're looking at the Q-tip thing and you pull one out and you use it. Why wouldn't you use more than one? You know, it was just so stupid. I just couldn't figure that out. But this is what happens when you've had an experience like this. You don't seem to function properly after it. And so I did what she said, and she told me to throw it in the freezer and keep it there until a lab could be found that we could go over it. And, you know, Kathy agreed, yes, that's really all we can do right now until we can get some type of proof. And so that's what I did. I threw it in there. I put it in a baggie, sealed it, never touched it. And so, the DNA swab that I had literally was in my freezer for 7 years. And there it sat. I literally forgot about the thing. And I mean, I knew it was there because I'd move it when I would go in the freezer, you know, I would just move it from side to side, but I never opened it, not one time, because I figured that would be stupid. You know, you've definitely got to have it as secure as possible. So I never did. And then Debbie Ziegelmeyer, who had heard my story about my DNA swab, called me and said, Teri, do you still have that swab in the freezer? And I said, yes, actually I do. And she said, well, there is now a MUFON lab in Missouri that would be able to take that on and take a look at it. And I said, okay, fine. So I got it out, contacted Lynn Mann, who is our, I guess she's the lab tech. You know, she has other actual, yeah, she's chief laboratory analyst. That's what I couldn't remember without that slide. Good thing it's there. So she sent me all of the criteria to do this, wearing a mask and gloves. And I had been trained in my position with the medicine and dental background that I have, medical and dental, to wear gloves, wear a face mask, you know, put out the blue sterile barrier. I took it out, put it in her sterile thing, with the transportation kit. And then I also did my own DNA in a different kit, and all that had to be sent to Lynn, which I was so excited about, you know, that I could finally, after 7 years, we have something. And so I did send it off, and she had called me and said, oh my God, after she looked at it, she said to me, you have a very interesting swab here. And I said, really? And her thing was, Teri, this thing is loaded with red blood cells. It has so many red blood cells. And I said, really? After 7 years being frozen? And she was astounded. We were both astounded that it was in such good shape, having been frozen for 7 years. And so she asked me if she could cut it and do some additional work on the swab. And she did advise me that once cut, I wouldn't be able to reuse that portion of the swab. So, which I understood from my background, and I gave her the okay to do it. And she sent paperwork for legalities for me to sign off and all of this. And I sent them back to her. And she contacted me a few weeks later and said, you know, this is an amazing swab. It actually looks like you had some kind of an accident. And I said, no, I didn't have an accident. This is, I told you what happened. And, you know, I had explained to her exactly what I'm explaining to you guys, maybe in a little more detail. But she said, it looks like something happened there. And I said, yes, I had this real strong pressure that I was sure was going to explode, and I was going to bleed all over the bed and the walls. You know, I thought, oh my God, this can't be good. And she said, well, that's perhaps what I'm seeing. And so that kind of, in a way, it validated it for me and made me, you know, feel like, wow, I'm so glad I had this. So as she looked at everything, she called me and said, again, can I do additional work on this swab? And I said, yes. So she did. And after she had done 3 different calls to me, we found out that she was able to find a match to the DNA that was on my swab. And it was this particular lizard. And there are hundreds of lizards, hundreds of snakes, hundreds of different types of, you know, dragons, as they call them, and that sort of thing. But this particular one had the exact match of what was on my swab. And that freaked me out. You know, she asked me, you know, literally when she called me, can you sit down? I've got to reveal to you what I found. Now, the thing about this one is he has that in the upper left, you can see he has that black around the eye, but the one I saw had red as well. And you can see that some are yellow, some are red. And the one I saw had red and yellow and green, and they come in all those colors. What I had was an amalgamation of this particular lizard, all in one, with those big jowls, which shocked me. So seeing this was so frightening for me. And he had talons on his hands, which I didn't mention earlier. Sorry about that. And this particular lizard had that same kind of talon on his hand, very thick. And I explained it like it was a dog, you know. And so that was also incredibly interesting. So she went over all these slides that she had taken pictures as we first initially started. Let me see if I can find in my book here exactly what these ones were, because I'd like to tell you what figure 1 and figure 2 are of. Okay. I told you I wanted to go through this so that if you had any type of questions, you could ask me those. Okay, it must be right here. Okay, so figures 1 and 2 up there are the red cell count that was consistent with the blood being present at the sampled area. There were also some cells consistent with the area or swab being at some point in the presence of water or droplets containing lake or pond water. Now, that is so interesting to me because one thing I didn't do before I went to bed that night in 2012 was, take a dip in a pond. Okay. So how did pond water get on that swab? That is just absolutely amazing to me, the detail that was found. And in figures 3 and 4 there, this could have happened in the swab's container of origin if it hadn't been sterile, but it actually was sterile because I used sterilization techniques. There were bacteria present and skin, which is not unusual on swabs taken like I took mine. So there was bacteria and skin. And then the email that I had received from, let's see, does it even talk about, 5 and 6. So there was an email that I had had from her at the time, and this was sent from an iPhone. So this was, I shared it with Kathy after all the work had been done. And Lynn said, my research has turned up a warm-blooded South American lizard species that has several genes like humans. And not only is it the only warm-blooded reptile they know of, it can control its body temperature. I have worked out an experiment to test this lizard's DNA against the rest of the swab DNA. And she had asked me again, here's where she asked me a second time, but I need your permission to use the last of it. I have also found a herpetologist that will collect samples and send them. If this comes up a match to the lizard, not only will it find your healer was as you saw him, but possibly that reptilians come from Earth or a planet very much like it. Think it over and get back to me as soon as you can, Lynn. So of course, I sent it right back to her. I shared this information, like I said, with Kathleen, because I wanted Kathleen to know what I was doing so that I had some backup in case all of a sudden it came up missing. So I sent everything to a second party for validation and clarification in the future should anything, disappear, because that has happened in the past. So the following is a photographic representation of the e-gel electrophoresis results of the DNA present on the swab sample and saliva sample supplied by myself with signed permission as per laboratory protocol. And the DNA ladder position refers to the base pair position on which the STR used as a marker resides on the human genome. So that is on this particular slide. You can see it says swab, saliva, and DNA ladder position. She did an excellent job of validating everything that she could with the different machines that she had. And this machine with the UV light on it is a Quick Gene Mini 80. It uses microfilter holders that separate out the DNA through the specifically designed filter using various reagents and a vacuum system. So this was also used. This is why, too, I always tell everybody, if you're interested in any of the lab findings that we have, please make a donation to our MUFON lab in Missouri because she needs so much. We're hoping we can maybe get some grants in the future, but right now everything comes out of her pocket. Debbie Ziegelmeyer is a huge, makes donations. I've made donations. I think the more we get, the more she can get, and we can know even more about what's going on. So these are the test results comparing different lizard and reptilian species on the top line. You'll notice the tape. Oh, I didn't forward it. Okay. These are the test results comparing different lizard and reptilian species. So to the upper left there, it says tegu lizard, green anoil lizard, dragon lizard, Asian glass lizard, Burmese python, boa constrictor, common gardener snake. She looked at a lot of different things, including geckos, alligators, chickens, turtles, human DNA, and mouse. So she did so many testings to try to find out. And the one that, as you can see there, spoke volumes was the tegu lizard. It's got something all the way across the top, proving that that is what was on that swab. Slide 40 here is, this image shows side by side the matching DNA between my swab and the DNA of a tegu lizard. So in Agros 2, the first one on the left is my human match, and then this on the right is the tegu match. And look at that. I mean, there they are. And this is an image, which is kind of hard to see here, but of the gel of the tegu and the human comparison. So that is kind of hard to see. I don't know if you can read those little things. I mean, even I have a hard time reading that. But anyway, it was the gel of the tegu and the human comparison, and they were 100% on. And here's the title of the tegu paper report released by the laboratory. Now take a look at the colors that we have here, you know, and look around the eyes of these guys. You know, it's just interesting. The one in the center has like a white around it. The one up in the upper left has a black around it. You've got the green, the yellow, the black, the gray, the red. And like I said, mine was a amalgamation of all of them because it's a hybrid. And how they do it, you know, I don't know. Don't ask that question. I don't know. But I do know that all these colors, which at the time as I was sharing this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard to share. It's just so stinking bizarre. But I have to tell the whole truth. I have to tell people what it really looked like, you know. And so, you know, it was hard for me. Okay. This was very difficult for me. And talking about, oh, and it looked like it was a octopus, you know, I'm like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm on drugs or something, but this is what it looked like, you know. And so this one that he used, I mean, I'm just talking about that there, but then as we went forward, the conclusion was written by Linman at the beginning of the testing of the trace material for the forensic report done in this laboratory for MUFON of Missouri. The intention was to test for DNA present and file a report with the witness and the headquarters of MUFON as per usual. Having found that the witness's DNA on the sample swab and lacking any access to alien DNA, should it exist, I, for the first time, began to research what reptilian present on this planet might be close to having any part of its genome similar to a humanoid. What I found was the giant tegu Salvatore Marianae, the resulting match to human and lizard DNA on the trace swab. It was a wonderful revelation to the analyst and to the witness. Never before, to our knowledge, has a traced sample matched a set of witnesses' accounts as well as this does. Even with the apparent lesser signal seen on the lizard gel, the potential for this study to be repeated with success on further samples of this type is high. It is for this reason the witness and study partners involved feel that this result should be published. And this is what she sent out to her fellows and, of course, to MUFON, to myself. And this was a published paper. Now, slide 44. Well, once I looked up the tegu lizard online, I was shocked to see the resemblance of the extraterrestrial that was in my room that night. I mean, it really was, as when I look at it, I'm like, And I kept telling them, no, the top of the head was a little more flat. And as I look back now, I was telling them what I remembered. And I think Kevin did an awesome job of creating it for me, as close as I could, even saying that the snout was smaller, the cheeks were bigger. He tried to make that look bigger, but when you're doing a, just like a painting of it or a drawing of it, it's hard to make it look like I had described it, but there it was. Now, let's see, I wrote a little book about alien healing, and I've taken it down because I want to put all the new information up. So if you're interested in purchasing that book, give me about till October 1st to get everything up, and you can purchase it and have all of this information in your hand. So meanwhile, I'm flipping through these little things that come through on Facebook about regrowing cartilage. It just pops up, and I thought, where the heck did that come from? And now look at this. Let me tell you, this is 2019, and I shouted out loud. I screamed when I read this. I was like, oh my God, they are now finding out that what I said in 2012, and here it is 2019, is that particular octopus tentacle is related to regrowing cartilage, and it has a healing property. That blew me away. And I called everybody I knew. I called Kathy, I called Denise, and I shared that with them. Of course, I called Dave McDonald and, some of the other people that I speak with on a, daily, weekly basis. And I was just so blown away. I'm like, look at this, what they've just found. So to me, this was another validating point. And then the reason that I share this is because right after all of this happened, all of a sudden, we're getting all this goings on in Washington, and we're having so much goings on and revealing the truth that's been kept from people for so long. And now with Elizabeth Vargas doing that reporting and others, coming out and telling people that, this is all real. We do have biologics. We do have DNA. Now, here's what's interesting. Lynn Mann of the Missouri MUFON lab did not have those biologics available to her. She didn't have that DNA available because they were still lying. They hadn't given that information to the public. But we actually do have DNA on file. So basically what he was saying is non-biologics were non-human biologics were found. And when questioned recently in that particular time frame while they were doing all that in Washington, he came out and told, Mr. Grudge told the truth that crafts have been crashed and we have non-human biologics as well as DNA. And he was telling them that. My point in sharing all of that was that nobody has ever made that known to MUFON or anybody else. We didn't know that we actually have it all for real on file until he came out. So she had to create all her own DNA testing and do the work that was already there. She could have found out and compared my DNA to what was found already. But they don't share that information with us. So that's what I was just sharing there. But anyway, thank you all for listening to all of that. I did cut it very short because it's already 4 o'clock and I didn't know how long everybody wanted to stay. If you had any questions, I would certainly take them.
Did you hear me? Am I on? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we can keep going till about 4:45. So we got quite a bit of time. So if we want to do questions, if you're online, you can either put the questions in the chat, or if you're here in person, if you got short questions, you can feed them to me and I can relay them, or you can come up here and ask them yourself if they're longer questions. I see a hand in the back. Mike, what you got?
Check them up.
Yeah, come on up. This is Mike Harris. He'll be asking a question in just a second.
Okay.
So I'm curious, Mike. So I've got a few questions, but they're really short. They're related. When you have that incident in your room at night, does your husband have any memory of it or anything happened to him? And my other questions are, between your children and your siblings and your parents, have they had any experiences? And my last question is, how many experiences have you had before and after this one?
Okay. I've had many experiences. Okay. Really, I've never counted them all, but just with extraterrestrials and nothing else, I'm going to say at least 6. And my husband did not wake up the entire time that I was having this situation happen to me. And I always wondered about that, but I have been told by other people who were in bed and had a husband or a wife in bed with them that the other person never is awakened. And as a rule, there is somehow they control that moment and you're a part of the experience and the other person is not. It's almost like they're in a freeze frame and they don't hear anything. They don't see anything. He never did wake up. I am currently divorced from that man. That was not Kevin. That was my previous husband. And he and I never spoke about anything. He had a very difficult time believing in extraterrestrials. He had a very difficult time believing in spiritual things and demonic things, all the different things that were happening to me in my life. He always had a very difficult time. We're only just now talking about them, as a matter of fact, because I'm good friends with him. But he never did wake up. I never felt like I could confide in him and talk to him and share with him about anything. We divorced in 2014 and it was finalized. I started the divorce in 2013 and was divorced in 2014. So that's why he is not really a big part of that. I never told him. And then you asked me about the kids. Had they had anything?
Kids, siblings, or your parents?
My son has had experiences. My mother has had experiences. My brother has had experiences. My oldest brother, Phil. And as far as like mine, no. Mine are different because I've been exposed to tall whites, grays, a regular reptilian, and then of course this colorful hybrid reptilian. And the whole focus of the MUFON symposium this year was friend or foe. And I can honestly say that I do believe that they are very friendly to us. I don't know why. I know a lot of people, say that they are not friends, they're foe. And I've never had a bad experience where I've been harmed by them or hurt that I know of, but my son, his experience when we had a mother-son date night, and that was also in 2012, was a very busy year for extraterrestrials in our family that year. And, he didn't have a one-on-one he was with me while we experienced a morphed craft. And that turned him into an instant believer. And, he used to make fun of me. I'm kind of used to being made fun of my whole life, actually, because, this is something that people have a hard time wrapping their own minds around. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. If it hadn't happened to me personally, I don't even know if I'd believe it still, but because it has happened to me, I can't deny what I've experienced. Did that answer all of your question? I know.
Yes, about your siblings and parents. So I've heard it runs down the maternal line, and you mentioned your mother.
Yes.
I wonder if your grandmother may have, and you've never heard about it, or she may not even know.
Well, my grandmother would have certainly known about Phil's experience because they lived in Miami. We're Floridians, and even though I'm in Tennessee now, but I grew up for 68 years in Florida. And my brother lived in Miami and my grandparents lived right next door. So I'm sure that his stepmother and his father would have mentioned, when he was 9 years old, that he was, having these incidences. She never did, my grandmother never did speak to me about them. So that's why I don't mention her. I do believe that she was well aware that Phil was having some things happen, and he actually saw a craft at a park when he was 9 years old. And my mother, I'm sure my mother shared with her mother, my grandmother, that they would be out on the boat and USOs would shoot right up out of the water and hover over the Gulf of Mexico. That's where my mother and her husband would take their boat and tool around up and down that coast of the Gulf of Mexico. And, they'd throw anchor and they would stay out for 3 months at a time. And she said on many occasions, it was almost like they were accustomed to seeing this, but they didn't talk about it because my mother was in management with a corporation called Honeywell Aerospace. And because my mother was a part of Honeywell, she knew that if she ever spoke anything about this, she'd probably lose her position because they'd think she was a nutcase. She had told me in 1979, don't you ever share this with anybody or they will label you an idiot, a nutcase. And so I didn't. I listened to my mother, and I didn't really say anything until after she had her cancer and then passed away. In 2008, I made one reach out to MUFON, but that was also a very bizarre situation because I didn't actually do it. I was led to do it. And then when she passed away in 2009, I waited till 2010 to go back because my mother had said, don't do this. And I really did honor my mom and dad, So anyhow, that's where it all picked up beyond that. So she had shared with me many things about what she had seen. And like I said, they'd be out there and these USOs would shoot up, hover over the water and take off so fast. Her and her husband used to say, oh my God, did we even see that? What was that? And she explained a long cylinder green type of craft that would shoot up out of the water. So it was very different than what I was seeing. I didn't see any green cylinders ever. Mine was, I've seen two of the actual crafts with just a very little bit of a hump on top. And mine had a blue light going around the center of it that constantly went. So each one of us has seen something different, except Joshua, my son, who we both saw the three lights that then morphed when they crossed Tampa Bay and went into St. Petersburg. They went down into Sawgrass Lake, but before it went down, it morphed into a black triangle. Now, I have had a conversation with Lou Elizondo about that craft. And he said that craft is well known by our military. It's a powerful craft. It morphs and, people have seen it morph. I didn't even know they could morph. So, to me at the time, I maybe had heard about that, but didn't really give it much thought. You know, it's funny how we can be involved in MUFON and still think, oh, that couldn't possibly be true, you know, and then all of a sudden you see something, or somebody you love sees something, and now it's like, it's a conundrum. It's like, what do you do with that stuff? You know, it's hard to, in this world, which seems to be so, you know, week by week, month by month, you know, working, getting your paycheck, going to the grocery store, blah, 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 the normality of life. And then something like this happens and you're like, what the heck? So, quite interesting.
Thanks.
There's a
Sorry.
number of questions on chat right now.
Oh, okay.
Yep, did you hear that? There's a number of questions on chat. You want to feed me one of them?
Yeah, Ruben asks, what planet did the entity belong to?
Ruben asks, what planet did the entity belong to?
Yeah.
We don't know. We believe it belongs to our planet.
Oh,
That it was a tegu Salvatore lizard that has been a hybrid here. So we don't know where the reptilian that would have been involved in that hybridization, where that would have come from. And I can guarantee you I did not ask that question.
Now, Lynn asks, was there healing, but I'm not entirely sure what is she's referring to. Lynn, did you want to clarify what you're talking about?
Did you hear that, Terry, or no?
I did.
Okay.
Was there healing? I don't know what's being referred to there. I'm gonna
Well,
get off screen.
okay, yeah, I can go in and see if I can read it.
Well, it just says, was there healing?
Oh.
Another one is, Jer, to everyone, have you ever seen this type of creature before or after?
No, I haven't seen anything like that before, and I have not seen anything as of today. So what I have seen is a regular reptilian, and that was in a different scenario.
Well,
And
those are
oh,
all
go ahead.
questions. So,
Any other questions here in the room? Questions in the room? Oh, I got two hands going up. Do you want to relay it or do you want to come up?
I just a short question. What changes go through after the experience? Did it help or harm or heal or what?
Were you able to?
Yeah, and to answer Lynn's question, yes, there was a healing, and that was the other part of the bizarreness of it all. I was healed from the pain, and I was able to, before I was healed, I could take two fingers and touch my stomach, and it hurt. It was that sensitive. And I always wore kind of fat clothes, you know, like I wore things that hung very loosely. I wore stretch pants. I didn't wear belts, you know, things like that, because that would have really caused a lot of pain. You know, every time I moved, that would have hurt me. So afterwards, I was able to, like, I'm back in wearing belts and tight pants and things like that. After 2012, I could. And so I was healed. And the big conundrum about that is, being a Christian, I didn't believe that anything could heal us other than God or the Lord. And, you know, so this was a real life, there's no other word I can say than conundrum, because I was like this, my spirit and my flesh was just like, oh my God, you know, I can't fathom this. And how could this be? And I did feel that I was told, literally, spiritually, there are so many things you do not understand. And I thought, yeah, no kidding. I don't understand a lot of things, but that doesn't mean I don't want to. And I wanted to understand. And what I understand is, in a nutshell, is that I personally believe that there is a great creator. He created everything, including them. We're created in his image, but they're not. And like I explained at the symposium, horses aren't in his image, dogs aren't in his image, but people believe in dogs and horses all day long with ease, not even giving it a second thought. Cats, fish, you name it. All kinds of living things are created not in his image. That is us. These other beings from other realms are not created in his image. We're body, soul, and spirit. They aren't. They aren't. That's why they're so thin. That's why, and here's another thing. They can't go from point A to point Z without a craft. You and I can't go from point A to point Z without a car or an airplane, or something like that. So we're similar, but very different. They don't look like us. People say, oh, I was raped by no, you weren't. No, you weren't. They don't have the wherewithal. They are not like us. They're completely and totally other than we are. And I know a lot of people want to hang out with that other thought, and that's okay. I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I'm just here to tell you what I know. And what was the other question?
We had another question in back here.
Earlier you talked about demonic experience. I'm wondering if that was something you could share.
Were you able to hear that?
I heard just I had a demonic experience.
Yeah, he said earlier you had mentioned a demonic experience. He wants to know if you could share about that.
No, not at a MUFON meeting. I'm not allowed.
Any other questions here in the room? Questions in the chat? Seeing none, questions. Oh, I got a question here, yes.
Any speculation of why she was kind of chosen for the healing, and if you've heard about other healings?
Okay. Any speculation on why you were chosen for the healing, and was there any other healings that you've heard of?
I hadn't heard of healings really at that time. There really wasn't that many that, and I can honestly say I didn't really believe in healings, and I know that sounds bizarre, okay, but all of us, I don't care who you are here on this, we all have things that we can comprehend and we believe, and others of us are like, kind of have that. And I wasn't one to necessarily believe in healings. And so I didn't really. And I wasn't praying that, oh, gee, I hope I get healed by an extraterrestrial. That never left my mouth. I never even conceived that thought, okay? And when it did happen to me, like I said, it was so emotional. It was so bizarre and surreal and hard for me to accept as a human being, as a Christian, that this could happen. It changed my whole life. So anyway, I'm hoping that that answered that question. But as far as anybody else being healed in my family, I don't know about that. I know they've had experiences, but no one ever came through and said this happened or that. I will say this, however, which is bizarre. And I'm going to accredit probably a spiritual situation for this, but my son had cancer and was dying moments from death, and he was healed. And then he had kidney failure, was on kidney dialysis, moments again from death, and he was healed. And that's the same son that was with me. And so I don't know if this is something that has anything to do with that in the big picture. I don't know. So it's interesting.
Ooh, got a two-part question from someone on chat. Have you seen any emotional behavior from an alien, especially a reptoid, and are they cold and unemotional?
They lack emotion. They only say what, like all he said was, be still. And others I've been with have said, we will not take you. We will not harm you. They're not big in conversation. They tell you just what you need to hear, just what you need to know. And they do seem to be controlling the entire time you're in conversation and in the room with them, in the moment with them. They're very powerful. They do have power. They do have the ability to kind of put us in a frozen mode. And there's the human fear factor. You see, it's easy for you to listen to me, but trust me, if you wake up tonight and you roll over and see something like that, yeah, I want you to call me and tell me, because I'm here to tell you, you're going to be screaming, and it is very frightening. And it's not something that you can go through easily. It takes so much time to deal with it. There are actual times that I stop and go, did it even happen? Oh my God, it's so freaking bizarre, because it's so hard to come to grips. Like one of the things I said was, where do I file this? How do I deal with this? How do I move forward from this? Because you have to be able to deal with the things that your eyes see and that you physically experience. And that is a very tough thing, especially when you're scared out of your gourd and you're not sure what just happened to you. People don't talk about that emotional side of it, but trust me when I tell you, it's all emotional. It's all freaky and bizarre in every single way possible. It's bizarre.
Yeah, there's another comment in the chat. I wonder if you have anything to say about this. And the comment is, if only they could announce themselves before showing up, might make it a little less frightening. Do you agree, disagree? What were your thoughts on that?
I don't know that it would make it less frightening. It would be another form of bizarreness, is that they're reaching out to you and letting you know, but they don't. And I've never known they were coming, except when we're doing a CE5, I'm very expectant of them showing up, and they have not failed me. And I've done a couple of them, one with Kathy and Denise and my girlfriend Rebecca in Florida. And they delivered tones to us, vibrations, if you will. Go figure that. And that was like in 2009. No, in about 2011, sorry. And I take it back, 2013. So they were doing all of that. And from the vibrations and the tones that they sent each one of us, we each got a different tone and vibration. And we had a keyboard there, and we were able to put down those vibrations. And the woman that was with us wrote a song that has been used, and I'm sure some of you have heard it if you've ever gone to anything that Mark D'Antonio has done. He took that song, The Universe is Calling, and wrote, he took the song that she wrote from our 4 tones, me, Denise, her, and Kathy Martin, and created this beautiful song. So they don't really tell you if they're coming in. I mean, I've never had one say, I'm taking you to the catacombs today, or you're going to see this today. I just ended up in the catacombs. I ended up with one at my bedside. I ended up with the ones on the crafts, but I had no clue. I do want to say this though. In 1979, when I had my first UFO experience that was hovered over the railroad tracks, I was coming home late from work one night, and the girl that I am that was driving that little Honda Civic that pulled up to that UFO is not the same girl that came out of the craft after they had taken me in the craft. I was completely different in my thinking. And I still to this day don't know what they did to me on that craft, because I was put out. I remembered being floated into it. I saw the tall white. He was there. I saw the grays. They were there. But they have the ability to put you under and then bring you up, speak to you, tell you something, and then put you back under. And then when you come back up again, you're not even there. You're somewhere else. And so extraterrestrials aren't something that we should be comfortable about, I don't think. I went into that craft feeling one way about them, and came out of that craft that night begging them to take me with them. I would have never said those words before I went in, ever. It just didn't make a bit of sense. So they do have a degree of power and control over us. And I still don't know to this day. That happened when I was 27. I'm 71, and I still don't understand what happened that night in totality, that I could have gone in fearful, freaked out, blown away by the whole experience, and then come out going, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me here, take me. You know, why would somebody say something like that? So we never really know what they're going to do or how they're going to interact with us or how it will leave us emotionally, physically, mentally. This is something people need to ponder, you know, before getting involved. You know, don't run up to a craft, don't touch it, you know, don't be one of these people thinking you can shoot them or you could do this or that. I mean, you could be killed. They have power. They're just not like us.
Yeah, I've got a comment I want to make for people in the room and online, and then I have a question for you. So my comment first is she's mentioning a CE5. So CE5 is close encounters of the fifth kind. Now, what she's talking about is CE5s is a set of protocols developed by Dr. Stephen Greer, and people come together and they go through these protocols with the intention of initiating peaceful contact with extraterrestrials and drawing them in. So they're trying to intentionally making contact with ETs and bringing them to them to have an experience with them. So my question about that is, you said you had your experience with this healing in these reptilians, and then you said you did a CE5 to draw them in. Do you feel like those are the same entities that you're trying to draw in, or do you think those are different entities that show up in your CE5 experiences?
I think they're different. My CE5 in Lakeland, there were 12 of us all there, and we had the fans blowing on us to keep the mosquitoes off of us. We had a fire burning, and we were all looking south, and we had chairs all sitting there and snacks and stuff like that, you know, very relaxed. And we're all looking south, and I stood up and I heard audibly, turn around. And when I did, I was looking now full north, due north, and there was a craft coming in, and it was moving pretty slow, but fast compared to where it was and what I was seeing. Okay, this was pretty far away, and it was coming in like this, which means it was going a whole lot faster than that because of how far it was. And all of a sudden it stopped. And I'm looking at that thing and it just goes down. It went from here to here in a flash. That would have killed anything human, and nothing in our universe could possibly move that fast. It stopped. It shot back up, and I was like, oh, wow. And I yelled to everybody, look, look. And 5 of the 12 people saw it. The others did not. And I don't understand why. They reveal to whom they will reveal. They don't, if there are 12 of you, it doesn't mean 12 of you are experiencing that. The 5 of us that did see it said exactly, we all saw it at different points. I saw it coming in, I saw it drop. I screamed when that happened, then it went back up, and then it came back down again, and then went right into Orion's belt. We were looking at Orion's belt, and it was kind of westerly northern. And I thought, this is very interesting. Look at how this happened. So, and Dr. Greer was not the first person to come up with this. Believe me, this has been going on for a very long time. And people have been getting together in Sedona for years in California and holding these kinds of meetings. But it did come through maybe more when he brought attention to it. So you can go out and concentrate and focus on them, and they may or may not show up. Most people say that they see things when that does happen. They do see something come in, and you know it's really not a Starlink or just a regular satellite when it moves inappropriately. A satellite or anything Starlink are going to be connected, or a satellite will have a trajectory that it follows, and it never does anything out of the normal. But when you see something zoom in, stop, drop, go back up and drop again, it literally made an N in the sky. You're dealing with something very real. I don't believe that that was any of the ones that I've ever seen before, but you know, the truth is, I don't have a clue.
Yeah, so with the CE5 events, have you actually ever witnessed an entity? And if so, what kind of entity was it? Where do you think it was from? Or what was their intention in the CE5 events?
I have not seen an entity at a CE5. I've seen crafts up in the sky. I have never seen anything drop down, appear. I've never seen anything like that. The ones that I've seen have either been on a craft, next to my bed, or in a caged catacomb. Those are the ones I have actually seen.
So on the craft and the caged catacomb, were those reptilians too, or were they something else? I'm kind of curious about those.
That was in the caged catacomb. It was a huge reptilian and very overpowering. It was an experience I write about on TeriLynge.com. And it changed my life about believing in reptilians. I used to think, the draconian thing and all that was, well, that's out there on the fringe, you guys. Come on, let me pull you back in. I think that's out there on the fringe. And then I had that experience and I thought, oh, dear God, these things are real. And I was shaking so bad in that experience with fear that I was biting my tongue and I had to clench my teeth to stop biting my tongue. It was involuntary. I was like eating my tongue. And I knew I was going to have blood in my mouth and everything else because I could not stop that. And so I just clenched my teeth and everything was shaking. I was literally shaking like that. It did not stop until I got into that catacomb where I was taken by a handler of that particular being. And he opened the gate, allowed me to go in. I didn't know if I was going to be eaten alive or what was going to happen to me, but it was really very, very frightening. And when I saw the size of this thing, it's like standing next to a grizzly bear. No one in their right mind is going towards that. Okay, I stood still and stopped. I'm like, oh my God. And he actually brought comfort to me. This is why I'm saying when I hear people bad mouthing the reptilians, one brought something to heal me. The other one calmed me, gave me a data dump, and told me that the information that he gave me when I needed it, I would have it available to me and it would come to me. And what was I going to say? Oh, really? Tell me all about that. I was like, okay, just get me out of here. And that is basically in a nutshell, the Reader's Digest version, if you will, of what happened then. And then I was taken back and brought back. And I don't know why they do what they do. I don't understand why these experiences happen the way that they do. I'd be lying if I said I understood it. I don't think all of us that have experiences really grasp or know the whole reason why we're being chosen to be a part of that moment. It's just that we are, and it's bizarre and life-changing.
And so you mentioned on the craft. So what types of entities did you see on the craft? Different or the same, or?
In the first craft I saw hovered over the railroad track, it was hovered. But to my right, this huge blue light came at me, and out of the blue light came a tall white, very thin neck, huge head, big eyes, long elongated arms, so ugly. I screamed out because I was talking to the Lord like, you've got to be kidding me. What the heck is that? I think I said, what the hell is that? And I was like, why would you allow me to see this? And I felt like he was saying to me that nothing could happen to you that I don't allow. And I'm like, that's right. If you allow this, then I can see it. But why would you allow this to happen to me? I don't want to see this. This is comic book entertainment. This is garbage. I don't even believe in this crap. Why would you choose me to see this? I was adamantly against it. Being a Christian, why would I believe in an alien? And so, I thought that was just literally comic book entertainment or Hollywood entertainment. And there he was, scared the hell out of me. Plus, I was raised up off the floor, off the street, the pavement on the street, a good 12 inches. And my body was being moved. I was being moved towards this thing. Once I saw there was a second ship landed in this area next to where I had this experience on Morris Street, right there on 28th Street North near Morris Street in St. Petersburg, Florida, by the railroad tracks. Over to the right is this big empty field where the railroad tracks run along it, and this field was there. There was a second craft landed there, and that's the craft he was moving me onto. I wouldn't even look at him. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Total denial. I was like, oh, no, no, no. That thing is so ugly. It's so frightening. I don't know what it is. I'm not partaking in that. And I was like, thinking I was in control. I was not in control, not in any way, shape, or form. And so I looked away and he took me. And the next thing I remembered after freaking out and seeing him there as I passed him was I was on a table inside this craft. And it was all white inside. There was a warm, like light glow from the walls, the ceiling, the table I was on, the floor, everything was just this pure white. And it had a light. Well, back in 1979, we didn't have that kind of lighting, and what was going around the outside of the craft was something that you would maybe see today from fiber optics. Well, we didn't have fiber optics in 1979. And I told this story back then. And, that's when it was written down. And, of course, now we have all of that, but we didn't then. So I do believe that they are sharing technology with us, and that's why we're booming, since the early 1900s. I mean, we've gone from cranking the old cars to now they fly, come on, and just in under 100 years. So, this is all happening now. And so I do think we are sharing information, but not to get too sidetracked. When I was on there, the tall white was there, but down by my ankles were two grays. Now, I'd never even heard the terminology of grays or tall whites, so I didn't know what I was looking at. I also experienced missing time, but because I didn't believe in them, I didn't know missing time was a reality. So I had no clue. I was just your basic uneducated person in that realm, experiencing all of this and then coming back and talking about it. And everybody else who knew about it knew that it was, okay, this is what she had, this is what she had. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Missing time? How could that be? Time is time. You don't miss it. And so it was just, my whole life has been this, try to wrap your mind around this craziness, And so I remember him looking right down at me and looking into his eyes. Oh my God. And it's shocking, just as shocking as the hybrid that was in the room that night. That shot terror right straight through me, looking into those eyes. And he said, the one on the ship, we will not harm you. We will not take you. And with that, I got a little bit boisterous and I was like, take me where? And then he put me out again. They don't allow you to be out of control. One of the few people that was out of control, that was allowed to be out of control, was Travis Walton. And I've talked to Travis about that. He picked up instruments and threw them at him. He was screaming at them and yelling at them and running from place to place on the ship he was on. And they had him there to heal him, but he didn't realize that. And so having had conversations with Travis and talking about this, I could glean some understanding of what had happened to me. And they did not allow me to be boisterous. Was it because they had so many people boisterous like Travis in the past? And now they don't allow it. They shut you right down. The next thing I remembered after that moment was standing in front of my Honda Civic and looking at the one that was hovered over the railroad track. And now all of a sudden I'm a completely different person. I'm begging for them, don't leave me, don't leave me. And I'm like, what are you saying? Why would you say something so bizarre? You got two babies at home. What are you talking about? Take you, and I was having such a internal conundrum. Like I was saying things that my own ears could not believe I was hearing me say. That's a pretty crazy day. And of course, that was the night that I went over and told my mother about it, because I thought, oh my God, I got to talk to somebody. I mean, I've either lost my cookies I'm a mental case, or I got to talk to somebody and tell them what happened and see what they say. And that was the night my mother said, "Don't worry, Teri, I've seen them too," which is when I thought I was about going to lose my total cool. I jumped up and started screaming at her instead of, saying, "Oh, isn't that nice?" I started screaming at her and pointing in her face and saying, "How in God's name, I'm 7 years old now. Why would you not tell me and prepare me for this crap? How could you allow me to be, subject to this nonsense? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you take me into your confidences?" And I was actually furious with her. So, I mean, those are some of my experiences and how crazy and bizarre they can be.
Yeah, and I'll offer this comment that someone made. Christine says, "That's exactly what I thought. They don't teach this stuff in school. It was so weird experiencing this in time and trying to figure it out."
That's right. You don't get it from church and you don't get it from school. And shame on those people, because there is plenty of information written and out there that we could be looking at that could help us to at least wrap our minds around the craziness of it all, because it's like I said, earlier, and I use that verbiage a lot. I say, we're not taught. And the church should be telling us, okay, strange things can happen, which is why I am currently now in Paris, Tennessee, and I do a podcast from our studio here in Paris, and it's called Paris Paranormal. And I share what really can happen to people and what is really going on. And it helps people to know that this is what can happen to you. And why did it happen? I've done a lot of studying and think tanks and reaching out to people to get other opinions. And I've tried very hard to get as much information as I can to be thorough, and I feel like I owe that to my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, my siblings and the world, humanity. And I believe it's my duty to tell the truth and to tell you what happened. It's your choice if you want to believe it or not. I've lived through it. So all I can do is share what I know. I never try to share anybody else's story because I don't really know anything about what happened in other people's stories. I do believe Travis, however, I really do believe him. And he's had a lot of people doubt him, but he's taken something like 21 lie detectors and passed them all. So, I mean, come on, people.
Yeah, in just a second, I'm gonna ask Joe to unmute everybody, so everybody out in virtual land can give Teri a big round of applause and a thank you. But Jared says, thank you very much for your time today. Teri, absolutely fascinating. And
Let's everybody here in New Brighton, make a big round of applause for Teri, and thanks very much, Teri.
Thank you.